calamari, all on the water, fall in the gutter, eating bread and butter.
In accordance with the Declaration on the Granting of Independence to Colonial Countries and Peoples, General Resolution 1514, this was done in 1960. The subjection of peoples to the alien subjugation, domination and exploitation constitutes a denial of fundamental human rights. We just went over that paragraph there. It is an impediment to the promotion of world peace and cooperation, which solemnly proclaims the necessity of bringing to a speedy and unconditional end colonialism in all its forms and manifestations. Again, something which the Australian government has failed to do. Under General Resolution 2625, self-determination as an emerging nation is in accordance with this: the establishment of a sovereign and independent state, the free association or integration with an independent state, or the emergence into any other political status freely determined by a people, constitutes modes of implementing the right of self-determination by those people. So again, you can see, as we start to have a look at the different international law instruments, everything is about promoting and supporting your self-determination. Your self-determination either individually or as part of an emerging nation. General Assembly Resolution 3166 stipulates that the provisions of the Annexed Convention could not in any way prejudice the exercise of our legitimate right of self-determination. So there is nothing that they can do to prejudice against you for self-determination or for self-determination under emerging nation. UN Resolution 2200A, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, adopted in 1966. The states parties to the present covenant, including those having responsibility for the administration of non-self-governing and trust territories, shall promote the realisation and the right of self-determination. Again, a reiteration in another General Assembly resolution. Montevideo Convention says the same thing. The political existence of the state is independent of recognition by the other states. So you are independent. You must be recognised as independent with equal standing. Even before recognition, the state has the right to defend its integrity and independence, to provide for its conservation and prosperity, and consequently to organise itself as it sees fit, to legislate upon its interests, administer its services, and to define the jurisdiction and competence of its courts. The exercise of these rights has no other limitation than the exercise of the rights of other states according to international law. Separate but equal standing. Now, under international law as an emerging nation, you can be an emerging nation for as long as it takes. So it doesn't mean that you have to go and build all of these things either for yourself or as a part of a nation. This is an ongoing process. China, for example, has been an emerging nation for many, many years. If we then go on to have a look at the laws of war, we know that Australia has been under military occupation since 1933, when war was declared basically on the world. When we look at Jack's text, chapter 11, verse 11, the definition of post limine does not purport to give the legal effects the post limine has. It simply indicates the return to the legitimate sovereign of that world, which has been for a time under the control of the enemy. The doctrine indicates that the mere possession by a belligerent in the course of war of property or territory of the enemy in itself is insufficient to transfer title or sovereignty. So even when you have a belligerent occupation, it does not entitle them to property or land. Now, land is everything. Sorry. Military occupation of enemy territory does not transfer sovereignty to the occupant. The territory remains under the sovereignty of the legitimate government until subjugation or cessation by treaty of peace. So as we look at all of these different instruments of international law, and they are all saying the same thing. They all support and promote the same thing. They all tell us the pathways that we need to go down to actually exit out of that and come into our own power, to grow up, to get out of the administration of the current governments around the world, to take responsibility honestly for ourselves and our fellow men, to join a society, if we so wish, of like-minded people who don't wish to be under that control or administration of these governments. So what does this all mean? Again, the instruments of international law show us that there is a clear pathway forward to self-determination. It's a really, really important point, and it's something that I stressed at the beginning there, is that you can do this on your own. There is no obligation to become a part of a society, to become a part of a new nation. This is your choice. It clearly states that in all of these instruments. If you wish to self-determine on your own, you do that. It may be a little harder. People have done it, though. People have stood up, they've become the adults that they are supposed to be, and they have exited the system. They have received support for that. So, again, it's your choice. When we look at what a state is very simply a state of mind. It allows you to change your mind at any time. That's what the law says. And it's so true. We have been so indoctrinated by television, media, education system, societal norms, all of those types of things, that we've actually forgotten who we are in here. We've actually forgotten to be the sovereign beings that we are supposed to be. And that word gets bandied around a lot, sovereignty. It's almost been bastardised to a point now where it carries a stigma with it. So let's forget that for a moment. Let's forget what the media is portraying people as when they talk about sovereignty. Sovereignty belongs in you. It's not something that can be given to you or taken away. It is something that you naturally have. We know the word sovereign citizen means a free slave, which is an oxymoron. You cannot be both. So when you think of sovereignty, sovereignty is about getting back to knowing who you are. What constitutes you as a person? What makes you bring in that higher awareness to be able to deal with what is going on here, down here in the maritime law field? What is it that gives you that honesty and responsibility of yourself with that higher awareness? When you start to go through that within you, that's what sovereignty is. It's not a name. It's you. You can do all of these things on your own, but it's much, much easier if you do this with a bunch of like-minded people. So hence the reason we are creating sovereign nations. We're giving you the opportunity to be a part of a society. When you join a sovereign nation, you take a pledge. But you take a pledge to each other. You don't pledge to a nation, because a nation can fall. But if you pledge to your fellow man, women and children, then you give yourself the responsibility and you hold others to that responsibility to look after each other, to support each other, to build that world that you all want to live in, to let go of the shackles that have been around us. And you get to do that together. A sovereign nation isn't about providing any further constructs, any further chains to put around your neck. It's just the opposite. We want to get away from that. Now, on this road that we have been travelling for quite some time now, in addition to the instruments of international law, we have another very, very important key. And that is that our original sovereigns have never ceded that land. Most of you are aware of that. They are the ones that are the custodians of this land. They are the ones that are bringing this opportunity to the table for all of us to free these shackles that we have. They're the ones that are opening up to allow us to become who we are and create the world we want. We've already notified the world of the right to stand up under our sovereign nations. We have already notified the world that we have already given a statement of independence. We have already declared peace and cessation of war. We have already put things in place to start the building of these nations. And we've been doing that for a period of time. So we have been laying these foundations, the foundations for you, for every single one of you, to step into a society of like-minded people should you choose. You don't have to. My favourite saying is, you do you. And it is very much that. If you want to come on board and be a part of that society, great. If you don't, great. You simply do you. We can offer a pathway to self-determination for you. It's under an emerging nation, which affords you the protection of a state, a larger state, a society, which is what our sovereign nations are. As an emerging nation, the government, through its signatory to international law, must promote and support these as well. We've covered that before. Under the rights of necessity, we have an absolute right to those things without which our obligations cannot be fulfilled. Now, those obligations mean the obligations of what it is to be a man, a woman, or a child. The natural obligations that we have living on this beautiful planet. So the right of necessity, I say the same of the right of necessity. We thus call the right which necessity alone gives to the performance of certain actions that are otherwise unlawful, when without these actions it is impossible to fulfill an indispensable obligation. But it is carefully to be noted that in such a case, the obligation must really be an indispensable one, not the act in question, and the act in question, the only means of fulfilling the obligation of an emerging nation. The government, through its signatory to international law, must promote and support emerging nations. So we have a right of necessity here. We have a look at, under the Law of Nations 116, what are the rights of which men cannot be deprived? If an obligation, as we have before observed, gives a right to those things without which it cannot be fulfilled, every absolute, necessary and indispensable obligation produces in this manner rights equally absolute, necessary and defeasible. Nature imposes no obligations on men. Nature imposes no obligations on men. without giving them the means of fulfilling them. They have an absolute right to the necessary use of those means, and nothing can deprive them of that right, as nothing can dispense with their fulfilling their natural obligations. So the law of necessity says we must fulfill our natural obligations as a natural man, woman and child. If we do not have the means to do that under a current construct, we have the absolute right to self-determine, and it is a necessary law that we can be utilising those things. So for example, a very simple one. If you need to get to A to B to go to work, then it is your right of necessity to drive. You must use that law of necessity to be able to live, to be able to survive in your natural state. So just to tie this in here now with what we are trying to achieve, or what we are achieving, and what each of you are individually able to achieve, is that we are first and foremost in allegiance with the universe that is conscious, alive, intelligent, and certainly not unfair. Secondly, we are in allegiance with our planet that is also conscious, alive, intelligent, and dynamic. And lastly, we are in allegiance with the fellow men, women, and children of our state. That state that we create ourselves, for ourselves, at the place where we settle by our own choice, under the guidance of the law of nature. More accurately, the law of nations, where we freely exercise our rights by our own free choice. Our own free choice. How many of us feel like we haven't had a choice lately? For a very, very long time. Most of our wages, 79% of our wages go to tax. We struggle, inflation is going through the roof. Everything that we do, every corner that we turn, every time we try to go down any avenue, we get stopped in our tracks. Because money has been the dependent thing. That's the thing that they use to keep us in shackles. Be it either by the stocks and bonds that have been created at our birth, or by making it very difficult to continue to live under the current means that we have. This is everybody's opportunity through self-determination, through joining an emerging nation, a society of like-minded people, for us to start to release those shackles, for us to grow up, for us to come out of this system, for us to be able to recognise inherently we have the ability, we have the creativity, we have the know-how to do this. We have the ability to form our society, to build that world that we want. I encourage every one of you to start looking at these modalities, these instruments of international law. You will very quickly see how, not only in the things that we've listed here today, but in many other areas, we are supported, we are promoted. We must be supported, we must be promoted to come back to our natural state. That is the most important thing. I urge every one of you to think about what it is that you want your world to look like. We can start to build this without those constraints. It hasn't really been a possibility before because of the fact that we haven't been in the mindset to do this, or very few have. Now we have millions of people around the world who have started to re-educate themselves, who are bringing in that honesty, who are taking responsibility for themselves, responsibility for their re-education under the correct law. We can see that awareness coming in. When we have that collective awareness of what we want, we move mountains. And let me tell you, we can. This has been done before. It has been done by other countries before. Self-determination as an emerging nation has been done. We can do that too, without harm to ourselves or our fellow man. Please leave here today knowing there is hope. Please leave knowing there is a pathway forward. Knowing that there are many people who are building a world which releases us from these chains. That we want everyone to come on board to do the same. That we're not going to provide these constraints that we currently have. That you have the ability to get creative. You have the ability to be who you are. That is the most important thing. And that pretty much covers the presentation that we have today as an introduction to international law. Before we go to Q&A, there's a couple of things, a couple of people that I'd really like to thank. And first one is Thomas Hendrick. He's an amazing man and friend, and he's been the one that has been guiding us on this journey through international law. It has been a steep learning curve, but to have him walking by our side with this and guiding us through this, it's made the path so much easier, so thank you very much for this. Our team in Mackay, my goodness, we have an amazing, incredible group of people in this town and surrounding areas. People who can see the vision, people who want to start to build this better world. They made it possible for today to happen. From the bottom of my heart, love you guys all and thank you very much. Also like to thank Grant Tulloch from 3only.life. Grant provided those images earlier where we talked about going from slavery to awareness. He also has an ebook online if you would like to start to learn more about that. If you would like to start to learn individually how you can actually start to see what's going on in your own box, start to deal with your own trauma in such a way that it's not detrimental to you, that you can come out of that and bring in that higher awareness. There is an ebook on his website, 3only.life, and he'll also be starting some courses quite soon. Please go and check it out. It is well worth it. I love the material. I recommend it for everybody. And lastly, a big thank you to all of you. What has been really encouraging is to see the support and people turn up, both here in the room and on the Zoom. Collectively, it takes us all to make a better world. We do this on our own, it's a hard road. When we do this together, we unite, we move forward, we build, we create. Right here, from the very fact that you guys have all turned up here and on this Zoom call, that is creation in itself, because you want to know. So let's keep this momentum going. That just about covers everything, I think, and we're happy to open up the floor for questions. I believe that we do have callers online, so if there is any that I get a little bit stuck with, you will be here to help. So, do we have any questions from the audience to start?
You've spoken a lot about states determining, self-determining, and so forth like that, and starting new societies and or state assemblies. I was just wondering if anyone here has started the process of reconveying their status in regards to updated or repudiations of citizenships, sending the appropriate agents to, I guess, disassociate ourselves from the birth certificate. Has anyone started that process again?
Thank you. The answer is yes, a lot of people have. I'll just come down the front. Did you guys on Zoom hear that?
Not very well.
Okay, so the question was, has anybody started the process of disassociating themselves from their birth certificates? The answer is yes, a lot of people have. Have we started to do that individually? Myself? Not yet. Others have though. There are processes that I know do work with that. It can be just as simple as going into the Australian Government office in Canberra, letting them know that you want to exit the system. Going through a process of then administering that trust on behalf of yourself, on behalf of the corporate self, from outside of the system. So yes, people have started to do it. Have you? Yeah. And maybe that's something else that we can have a look at down, like in this kind of a forum.
Information. What are the next steps? Like, okay, what I'm saying, what was a big yes? What happens from now?
Okay, so the question is, what happens from here? We are going to continue to educate on international law. We are also in the process of doing, rolling out community presentations for the sovereign nations, which will be open for everybody to come and join. There will be information specific to the nations on that, not just on international law as this was about today. From there, we will be opening up membership. So information will be given at the community presentations for the sovereign nations, as well as on membership day. What our intent is, and this is really important, is that anybody that does want to step into a new society under that umbrella is educated. You are aware of where we are, what the steps are, what you need to know. What you need to know in gaining, for example, an international driver's license under, say, the regular nation. How is that going to look for you? What does it mean to be under there? What rights, what privileges, what benefits, etc., etc. That will all be covered in the community presentations with a follow-up membership. In addition to that, the continuation of education on international law. It's really important that all of us go forward in education. We cannot be like any of the other groups out there. We cannot put things on the table which is going to say, this is going to work for you. This is going to pull you out. This is going to give you the opportunity to do this when we're not ready. We must make sure along this process that no harm is done to any man, woman or child. Hence the process. There is no easy, there is no quick way out. Hence the reason that we have been working so hard to actually get to this point.
Joy?
We've got Joy with a hand up. Anyone here? Joy?
Yep, have done. Hi. Hi,
Hi.
Kim. That was really excellent. You always deliver more than we expect. My question is, there's so much to read. What would you recommend in terms of learning or the priority list or?
Okay, so the question here was, what do we recommend to start reading on? Because Joy's right, there is a lot of information, there is a lot of material, there's a lot of rabbit holes to go down. First and foremost, the Law of Nations. I meant to give some links out to put them up into the chat, I'm sorry.
It's on the Telegram.
Yep.
It's actually in the
Oh, it's in the chat? Oh, thank you very much. Great, thank you. And you can reference those places that we mentioned in the presentation today. In addition to that, I would start to have a look at those UN general resolutions. They're very clear. They give you the information on what is lawful under international law. So they're probably the first places that I would start to look. Then you can start to correlate. You can have a look at the Geneva Convention, the Vienna Convention, Montevideo Convention, all of those things as well. So Pacta Sunt Servanda rule, have a look at that. All agreements must be kept. There's information on that. So it's a big beast. What we covered here today was just extracts, obviously, to give you that picture. They're probably the best places to start. I had a question here for this gentleman.
I've got two. I think it's slide SA 218 was a paragraph just with the prince. I think it's international law, the prince is referring to the prince. Who's the prince? Prince of where?
Oh, right. So, no, that was just, that was referring to a prince at the time when the Law of Nations was written. That's not a specific person.
Okay. My second one.
Yeah.
Is with the establishment of the nation, he is talking, well, is this, if it's up and going and you withdraw, you move to the nation, is it, how does it work with sitting, well, which is all back up and go somewhere else, or like, is it a succession like Hutt River, or what?
No. Right, so the question was there for those who didn't hear it is, if you want to join a sovereign nation, do you have to move physically? Is that the big question?
Well, it's been done before in this country where people succeeded and created micronations,
They have.
and they've still ended up back in the Commonwealth, or they've had to deal with the Commonwealth, and the Commonwealth hasn't recognised. How does this line up with there? How do those lessons carry forward to this? Where's the difference?
Okay, so the question was, where is the difference between us and what other people have tried to do before? So the difference is that many more people are aware now. Many people have that awareness of what is being done to us, what they continue to do, and what they don't want anymore. We're at a very unique time in history where you can see that this many people in this room today, and the number of people on this Zoom today shows you how people are disenfranchised with the current government, how we want to find another way. Now, I'm not saying that this is an easy road. It is not. Trust me, it is not. We come up against many things. However, there is always a solution. Now, us, along with our sovereigns, are determined to keep this moving. And people are so interested in finding another way at the moment that is only going to continue to grow. We do not have the opportunity to be able to step back into what we have. What we have leads us down to a path where they just tighten that noose around our neck. That's why it's your choice. That how many of you want that? How many of you want to get to that point where you're choking so you cannot breathe anymore? Because that's where it's going. If we don't do something and if we don't carry this on, we don't have that hope. We really don't. There is enough of us now in this country and in this world to keep the movements going, to keep the nations going, to make sure that this better world that we want to build without those chains is a movement that carries on. There is no guarantees with anything.
So basically saying that you think there's enough people for it to make it harder for them to shut it down, to stop it.
Oh, they will try.
Oh, well, of course, but
Yeah.
what you're saying is
Yeah.
that you feel that we're reaching that critical mass of where people are going, hanging out, and more. It's harder, the more of us that say that.
Yes, I do. And also, if you have a look at Hutt River Province here, Al Corbis, this beautiful Corbis, he's hopefully going to come on and give us some words of wisdom. I'll just finish off with the Hutt River Province thing. We have a look at Hutt River Province. They actually kept going for many years. It was only that their children, when the guys' children actually took over, that they stepped back into the Commonwealth. It's doable. It's been done here before, and there is no reason that we can't do this ourselves. Corbis.
I just want to say something quickly about the birth certificate and the trust that's created with the birth certificate. A lot of people have gone down that route. A lot of people have been arrested. A lot of people have been killed. A lot of people are in prison. It's not an easy thing to fiddle with, and there's a reason for it. If you want a copy of your birth certificate, you have to pay for it. In other words, it's not yours. You didn't create it. The trust wasn't created for you. It's not your trust. It's got nothing to do with you. It's how they created the system with which to harvest your life force from the day that you're born till the day that you die. And against that life force, they print currency. And the currency they're printing is debit and credit, because in 1933 they took all the money away. There's no money, there's only debit and credit. So to go down the route with the route with the birth certificate trust, it's not an easy one. It's very, very complex, as everybody that's got anything to do with the trust is an adversary to the trust. You're the enemy of that trust. Even the beneficiaries are the enemy to the trust. The reason being so that the trust can survive. So the trust will always be there. But to work with that is a very, very complex situation. I believe what the nations and the tribes are doing, which I'm very grateful for, is to find a way collectively how we can actually do that on a group level, probably. Okay, that's busy in the process being played out right now. Because globally, we need to all actually come out of the system, or we're screwed. Right where everything is right now on planet Earth. We need to get our act together and actually do something about it. Yes, and the way out of the system is out of the system. And once you're out of the system, that access to the birth certificate, trust, value, and equity will be yours once you're out of the system. But it's a whole process. Okay.
Thanks, Corvus. You guys heard that up there?
I couldn't understand it.
Right, so I'm just going to reiterate, Corvus, if you can just stay unmuted there in case I get this. So what Corvus was just saying then is that it is a very, very difficult process to go down the path of your trust, of gaining that trust, the trust that you were given at birth. Many people have been killed doing that. Many people have tried and failed many, many times over. It's not easy, and it's not easy for a reason. You had to pay for your birth certificate. In 1933, it became a debit and credit system. It was no longer a gold standard system. It was no longer currency. It was debit and credit. Now, they set all of this up for a reason. When you step outside of that trust, it means that this is the only time that you have the ability to access that trust and administer your corporate self.
Anna has a question.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. So I am Northern New South Wales, Bundjalung Nation. Within Bundjalung Nation, there are many mobs. With forming a particular nation, so I actually live in Wyable. Lismore is Widgeable. So is it going to encompass all of Bundjalung or specific to where you live?
No, these sovereign nations are rolling out across Australia.
Yeah, so on New Year's Day, I was out at Rocky River with Bundjalung lawman Lewis Walker, and he said, find out who within where you live, Wyable, to see if there's any initiation. So in thinking of this collectively, my view would be, wouldn't Bundjalung as a group be more powerful than an individual, as in my case, Wyable nation?
Absolutely it would. And Anna, if you would like to do a private chat message with your number to team, I think it's on there as Christine McDonald.
My team.
It's on there as team. If you can send her a private message with your phone number, we'd be happy to chat with you about this after the session.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated, guys. You're doing an awesome job, and this is so exciting.
Yeah. Thank you, that's lovely. Okay, if we don't have any questions there, we'll wrap that up for today, and I hope everybody has enjoyed the session. I hope it's given you that little bit of an understanding of international law and how we actually start to use international law to come out. Well, we've got one more.
How will we know when and where these information sessions will occur?
The information sessions will be posted out on Citizen social media to let you know when the next one is up and coming. Hopefully that'll get around to you.
And sign up.
And sign up. If you're not sure, you can always send an email to birrigubba.sn, birrigubba@proton.me. If you do that and are interested in future sessions, then please let us know. I think also, just before we go, if anyone would like to participate in actually writing law based on international law, then please write to that email address and we will get in touch and start to form some groups around that. Yeah, anybody here also that is in the PI, we do hold regular sessions down at Blue Water Quay at 10 a.m. every Saturday morning. Please come along. There's a lot of information that is given out, particularly on the sovereign nations and just other current world events. So if that's it, thank you so much for all attending.
Bigala bogala, Billy, my, I get a guy, I'll put your in me.